great to see the project, over an 8 or 9 year iteration with council and community to finally have the project in the sense of now completion. Our local community have had a lot of knocks, and the wind farm was one that went into recess a little bit, and so the anticipation and the excitement for it to start has really captured the imagination of the local community, and we've been only too well and too happy to be a part of this exciting venture for us and economic driver for the state, and it's been a great outcome for all concerned.
G'day and welcome to Musselroe Wind Farm. This is the story of its development and construction. It's about the people involved, the place, the challenges and the celebrations. What we struggle to show clearly are the frustrations, the dedication required and the sheer volume of work done. To help understand, consider that all that you'll see was built in less than 15 months, all in a remote, beautiful corner of Tasmania called Cape Portland.
Large infrastructure projects can take a long time from concept to completion of construction. The Musselroe Wind Farm is no exception. Wind data compiled from nearby meteorological stations during the mid-1980s showed a world-class wind resource was available in the area. Early developers narrowed in on a potentially viable site, and a wind monitoring tower was erected on the Cape Portland property in the early 2000s. It's taken more than a decade since then to bring the project to completion.
When Hydro Tasmania first began to investigate the opportunity for building a wind farm here at Cape Portland, in those very early days began to also engage with the Tasmanian Aboriginal community. And there's been a series of investigations and consultations over more than 10 years on this project. So all of the lagoons and a lot of the sand dunes around the coastal strip were very early on excluded from development for cultural heritage reasons.
Manalagenna is the ancestral grandfather to many Tasmanian Aborigines today. He was the leader of Tebrakuna. The territory where the clan lived was right here at Cape Portland, between the Great Musselroe River and the Ringarooma River. The wind farm to me would be just such an awesome technology for Manalagenna. If he could come back and see the wind farm as it is today, he would be absolutely in awe of these great big machines harnessing the wind and using it, the technology to generate energy.
The planning and environmental approval processes took a number of years, with detailed investigations leading to a development proposal submitted to the local Dorset Council in 2004. Several years of baseline studies were required to document the bird utilisation of the site, since several rare species of migratory birds use the lagoon and coastal areas at Cape Portland as important habitat. Construction of roads and hardstands was able to commence in 2009, and once again work was paused as many factors conspired to make wind farm construction in Australia a challenging work. With the signing of turbine supply and major civil and electrical contracts in late 2011, the project was once again in full swing. Cape Portland is the most northerly tip of northeastern Tasmania, and on a clear day has a stunning view of the islands and mountains of the Furneaux Group, including Flinders Island and Cape Barren Island. It's 100 kilometres northeast of Launceston and 20 kilometres north of the small township of Gladstone. The property is over 5,500 hectares in size and has been used for sheep and cattle grazing since the early to mid-1800s. Large areas of coastal sand dunes and lagoons are still undisturbed and provide important areas of native plant and animal habitat. Around 40% of the property has been voluntarily excluded from the wind farm development to preserve these rich biodiversity values. Hazel Brothers, a Tasmanian company, won the contract to carry out the civil works for the project. Over 70 kilometres of roads and tracks were built or upgraded to provide access to the wind turbine sites. Much of the rock for roads and concrete was quarried at the neighbouring property of Rushy Lagoon. Hazel Brothers sourced as much of their labour as possible from the local region. This was welcomed since a decline in forestry and agricultural production in recent years has resulted in a ready pool of workers with the right skills. The main electrical contractor was Consolidated Power Projects from South Australia. They were responsible for laying over 64 kilometres of underground 33 kV cable. This connects every wind turbine to the control building. Some areas of the wind farm offered easy digging through light and sandy soil. However, other areas required blasting through hard dolerite rock to create the trenches required. Each wind turbine sits on top of an 80-metre high steel tower. The towers, made from 3 sections, were fabricated by local company Haywards near Launceston. The foundations for the wind turbines are built in an octagonal shape of approximately 19 metres diameter and around 2.7 metres at the deepest point in the centre. A batching plant was set up at the wind farm site, and the approximately 80 truckloads of concrete for each foundation were put in place in a continuous pour. This meant that the concreting crew worked long shifts and endured challenging weather conditions. More challenging conditions were experienced by the team building the transmission pole foundations. Adverse weather, waterlogged tracks, and a range of soil types from the sticky to the highly erodible were just some of the issues they faced. As the construction got underway, the team was contacted by local wildlife carers concerned about the fate of any pouch young whose parents might have been hit by project vehicles on the roads.
Well, I've been looking after animals for about 65 years. Started when I was about 10, bringing home orphans this and orphans that, and have been doing it ever since. Tina came to me from the Musselroe Wind Farm. I had a phone call to say that they'd picked up a joey and thought she was probably in need of care. And Tina is an eastern grey kangaroo. Took to the bottle very well, so she's actually never looked back since she came in here. The visit to the wind farm to talk about saving these animals was very, very worthwhile as far as I was concerned. And I found that very interesting that a lot of them, so many of them, were really interested in making an effort for our wildlife. It was, yes, it was a very worthwhile trip.
The 156 transmission line poles were built with 3 galvanised steel sections, and over 11 different foundation designs were used. The transmission line traversed land held by 17 different landowners, many of whom have irrigation infrastructure to be avoided. A dedicated land liaison officer for the project kept in touch with all the landowners and made sure that the communication between the landowners and the construction crews remained open at all times. A high priority for the project has been to engage with the local community in a positive way. One way of doing this was to be part of local community events, such as the North East Rivers Festival. The wind farm project provided sponsorship and logistical support to the event, and project team members got involved directly in the Derby River Derby as they entered their homemade raft in the race down the river. Much effort was put into keeping the local community informed about the various stages of construction. Regular newsletters and mail-outs were provided, along with video updates posted online and distributed to local visitor and online access centres. Face-to-face contact was also facilitated through a number of community information sessions held in local townships. These occasions were a chance for the community members to ask questions and talk with the project manager and other team members. Each wind turbine is made up of several large components that need to be transported individually to the site. For each of the 56 turbines, these included a 75-tonne nacelle, a hub, 3 44-metre long blades, and 3 tower sections weighing between 30 and 70 tonnes each. Each component had to be transported by road from the shipping port at Bell Bay or the steel fabrication factory near Launceston Airport. Naturally, transport of such items needed a specialised crew and occurred in the early hours of the morning to minimise any disruption to road users. Once transport of the wind turbine components began, the project team began to receive calls from interested community members who wanted to know when the trucks might be passing by so they could watch them. This led to a special daytime blade parade being organised, in which a single wind turbine blade was driven through local townships to the Scottsdale showgrounds. Hundreds of people of all ages turned out to see the enormous blade, giving everyone a true sense of the scale of the turbines and the project.
Very good.
The transmission line traverses private farming land and conservation reserves. Once the towers were all erected, the task of stringing the conductors was undertaken. This was done by large machinery pulling through a guide wire, followed by winching through the heavier conductors. However, in some areas, where there are river crossings, sensitive locations, or farm equipment to avoid, a helicopter was used. This was a more expensive, more spectacular and faster method than conventional ground-based approaches. The control building is the heart of the wind farm, with all the turbines connected to it by underground cables. From here, the operators can monitor every detailed aspect of the turbines and communicate with Hydro Tasmania's other operational centres and Vestas sites around the world. The erection of the wind turbine towers and lifting of components up to the 80-metre hub height requires a specialised crane not normally available in Tasmania. The Liebherr LTR 11200, a narrow-track telescopic crawler crane, was booked long before construction commenced and was transported to site by a convoy of low loaders. On arrival, the assembly of the crane itself took a number of days. Once put together, however, the crane has the capacity to lift 1,200 tonnes and has a boom length of 18 to 100 metres. Working in tandem with a smaller 500-tonne crane, the Liebherr is an essential and expensive item for the construction of the wind farm, and one of only a handful of this type of crane in the world. Its top speed is 1.8 kilometres an hour, which really is a crawl. However, this enabled it to move from one site to the next in a matter of hours, rather than the days it would have taken if the crane had to be disassembled to make each move. Day and night shifts were scheduled so that every moment of suitable weather could be used for erecting the turbines. While construction was underway, a targeted education program was run with a focus on 7 regional schools within a 90-minute drive of the wind farm. Activities and information about renewable energy were shared, and some classes took the wind farm as a theme across many of their curriculum areas. The education program culminated in visits to site by the students in class groups. Since construction was still underway during these visits, the students and teachers were able to see the wind farm being built before their eyes.
Yeah, they were quite privileged to be able to come to site while construction is in full swing. Some got to go inside the turbine base, Others measured the length of the blades, looked inside, and they had a quite enjoyable day.
Commissioning of the turbines and switchyard equipment is the final step before full operational handover from the construction team. Although not as visible as the erection of turbines with large cranes, commissioning is no less intense a process.
The commissioning of Musselroe Wind Farm has been challenging for several reasons. One of our main focuses has been on ensuring that we comply with the requirements of the regulators at all times. From our design, the additional balance of plant reactive support equipment is a requirement not really placed on other wind farms. But as our site has the unique nature of being located so far from a connecting network and connecting to an already weak part of the electrical grid, much emphasis has been placed on power system security and stability.
Commissioning in the substation consists of having several contractors on site at different instances, several interfaces to the project team. The wind turbines have requirements for several testing regimes, and the first of that is a 168-hour reliability test where we actually put the turbine to run uninterrupted for 168 hours. Thereafter, the turbine is available to be handed over to the developer for operation.
The construction team hosted a community open day in May 2013 to give people a chance to see the wind farm for themselves. There was a tremendous response to the invitation, with over 1,150 people coming from all corners of Tasmania. Each tour bus group were taken to a turbine site where they could climb the steps to see inside a turbine tower and talk to an operator about how it all works. A light lunch and information display were provided at the wind farm's control building, and visitors had the chance to talk with project team members. The feedback from visitors was overwhelmingly positive, with many residents of the northeast region proudly anticipating the chance to show off the site to their interstate relatives and friends.
Yeah, I'm from Launceston, so I'm a local in the area, if you like. Yeah, I think they look really good. Being mechanically minded, I'm quite interested in the life of the project.
I think it's marvellous. I'm surprised at how silent it is when there's been such controversy about noise. Fabulous public relations exercise, and everybody's been really helpful and informative.
Your tour guides, the opportunity to climb up into the towers, giving us all an idea of what it's really about, rather than being great mystery.
Look, it's took a lot of, answered a lot of questions, and I'm sure everybody that's on this trip today is very appreciative.
They're pretty big. I don't know how to describe them apart from big and wide, but they're really big. Dad got us up at some ungodly hour of the morning, but it was worth it.
At the end of construction, the team dissipates, and the project is handed over to the operations crew who will carry it forward. The wind farm will be managed by a smaller crew of local people than the team that built it. It'll generate power and pride in the local community for the next 25 years.
It's been a tremendous 18-month journey of the construction of the Musselroe Wind Farm, and all that decade or so of effort to lead up to let's go. Well, we have pressed the button, got on with it 18 months later with the wind farm completed, and it's been a tremendous team effort.
Delivering a project on time and on budget is really only one aspect to the success of a project. The others, for us, are maintaining the strong community support, contractors turning up excited and proud to be a part of the project, and also delivering the project within the unique environmental constraints that this one has to offer. So to the hundreds of people that have been involved directly and indirectly, from our team and Hydro Tasmania, thanks. Nice work.